within the realms that we feel we can show each other, there is a system of interconnected imaginations. When we draw upon one of these, this is how we manifest into the world. Manifestation is not unlike planting a seed and watching it grow over time into a tree. The ideal of growing culture is one that keeps us going to where we like to go. The effort and the opportunities that we give ourselves oftentimes are manifestations of this thing, this imagination, this idea that can be harnessed as a sort of amplifier for life. I have heard many people say, how do sober people stay interested? Life seems to be boring at times, and my only answer for that is that art and community can provide so much for an individual that I would argue that anybody who feels that they are bored merely needs to find a group of people that share their interests. What are your interests? Some of my interests are painting, art, music, and festival culture. Recently, I attended a festival that had been constructed from literally nothing. I was blessed to be a part of this adventure, and when I was asked to come aboard, I didn't hesitate, and I felt that it was nearly instinctual for me to insist that a part of this festival should involve workshops. A podcast is not unlike a workshop. In my opinion, they can be very similar. A podcast might only be a workshop that only the teacher talks during. But I think that it's important to realize that when you open yourself up during a podcast, it is not unlike when you attend a workshop at a festival. And I'm happy to say that we learned some stuff at this festival. I've been going to festivals for my entire life. That being said, it feels very natural to me to take the effort to sleep outside for a few days and connect with a certain group of people that is merely present. And that kind of gathering, it holds a little more value to it because people have paid for it. When you invest in an experience like that, I know in the past when I've invested in an experience like that, I feel as though I don't want to waste any moment of the festival. But after having been to so many, and now I've been an attendee as well as a producer from both ends of that existing dichotomy, I have to admit that festivals are, I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen, but there are so many festivals out there, and there's so many opportunities to gather with groups of people that the ones that stand out really go to an extra extent. And for me, co-creation was one of those festivals. The addition of the workshops, in my opinion, was one of the smartest moves. When asked to create a list of people based on whom had applied, it didn't take long to realize that I needed to select workshops that not only interest me, but would interest people around me. And I feel that the community of people at Create Culture really latched onto these workshops really well. I mean, at some workshops we had 40 plus people attending, and I had instructors saying that they were unprepared and nearly overwhelmed with the attendance of a specific workshop. This workshop was, of course, a cacao ceremony, and during this workshop, it was a beautiful and wonderful expansion of open-hearted people. It takes a very open mind to be open-hearted. And I think that in those moments, we closed our eyes and we closed our ears and our mouths, and we opened our mind's eyes and listened to our mind's ears and evoked the voice of a maybe primal instinct to resonate in groups of people, to create a sort of plane of a waveform of consciousness that all who were attending created with the simple sound of an Om. And we would do this for about 5 minutes, following our breath and jumping in and out of each other's frequencies, not paying attention to being in a certain synchronistic pattern, rather than just being yourself, oming in a group of people, while we drank this cacao, which is a raw plant powder that is straight from the cocoa plant family and the caffeine family. And when you drink this, it is not unlike a drug in that it tastes amazing, but if you engage in the ritual with your intention, it supercharges the activity and it becomes a sort of entheogen, or for me at least, it felt like I was really connecting to my spirit. What I really enjoyed about the entire situation was that the person who had led the entire ordeal never channeled all of this concentrated attention towards one god or one direction or into her ideals or the reserved pretensions of anybody who had constructed such an interesting gathering. Truly, such a ritual could mean literally nothing if you so desired, and I imagine from a distance, if you're not into this kind of activity, it might have looked very odd. It could have even struck a chord with you that was scary, or, for lack of a better word, culty. But I must insist that the nurturing leadership of Kat, the facilitator of our cacao ceremony, in no way suggested a sort of evocation of one particular faction or sector of the spiritual spectrum that the earth exists with. I did not ask all who attended the fest, or all who attended the workshop for that matter, what their intentions were throughout that experience. All I knew was that my own intentions were elevated and magnetized during that experience to a point where I wept and tears broke from my eyes. And inside of myself, I felt a voice and heard a voice say, "This is why you survived." And at that point, a strange thing happened. Something within me began to formulate a question as to whether or not that feeling in those moments were too good to be true. And I imagined that at any point something horribly wrong could happen that would spiral us out of control instead of up into the echelons of human feeling. But the situation rounded itself out, and I peeled back and realized that I do deserve to feel that level of bliss. And all the hard work that I and all the people who were on the team for Create Culture and co-creation, it was all worth it. And granted, that was not the only time people really found themselves in a unique moment, because these festivals have so much to offer, whether you're interested in painting or electronic music or dancing. There was always a sense that there was something to do for everybody there. And this idea of being included within a community, I think, is the difference between feeling appreciated, needing to feel appreciated, or just knowing that you are appreciated even when you're alone. Right now, if you're alone and you're listening to this, there was a moment at the end of September out in a field in the middle of Texas where people thought about you and what it was like to at one point have been in your shoes. And this thought came from me because I at one point had no community and I was isolated. I chose to do it to myself because, as a wise man once said, you can't have my isolation. And the truth of it all is that by giving my presence to just a few people, or rather whomever I see, this conscious decision to exist in the same place with another person, despite how sad they are or how happy they are compared to me, if you can just let the water settle and hold a real light for people. As they sail through the chaotic ocean, when we shine a light for each other, the distance between us no longer seems as far. And we can set out on those emotional adventures with a little bit more confidence that though we are feeling such strong situations in our mind, that the ideas that permeate into our actions merely reflect how we feel as though it is our right to be understood. And who doesn't want to be understood? It would be awfully sad if you were to set out to sea and the ocean just didn't understand you. It's like, no, I understand that you're out here trying to get somewhere, but I just don't understand, and you're either gonna have to turn back or think of somewhere else to go. I would never set out on that adventure, or such an adventure, alone. Maybe if I was a master salesman, but I am not. And all of this sailing is just a reminder that people, it has been said, float around like pieces of driftwood in the ocean. Truly, we smack up against each other every once in a while, but then we drift apart. And sometimes we come back around to greeting each other again, and I have a true belief that, we're not just pieces of driftwood in the ocean, let's be real. That the body, if left to its own devices, I truly think might drift and do as it may. And there are people out there who could influence you to drift as they are. Because in the drifting, it is a freedom of sorts. And we have tons of friends who seem to drift so elegantly from place to place without having even the slightest amount of resolve, yet the most bolsterous amount of confidence that all will be well, simply based on the fact that they're not afraid. These heroes in our life really exist. They're out there. There's a certain understanding. There's a familydom, a sisterhood and a brotherhood of people who have had their soul broken. The gestures that we make to express this misunderstood aspect of our lives, whether it be from an outside source or from even ourselves, we question why certain things happened to us. I know for me, I oftentimes question God why I would be born in a way to which I would not have breath afforded to me all the time. Breath, the life force of our movement. When without breath, our blood has no oxygen. Why would such a being exist? Surely, if I were to exist in nature, I would perish. But am I giving myself too little credit? Here we are in the world with technology, with flesh. It's all here. It's all under the atmosphere. That is the boundary between space and what is beyond it. The imagination has the potential to find the cure to our individual ailments, be they physical, mental, passive, abrupt, negligent, intrusive. All of the things that have happened to us or that we have done to others have words to explain them. And these words, they come out in these workshops. there is a time to sit down and open up and share the raw, sensitive essence of your experience. If we could tap into all experiences ever experienced, like they're psychic, but then you would experience psychically all the experiences of everyone who's ever experienced a thought, feeling, life or death. Just try to think about that for a second. Okay, I didn't even try because I feel like my mind would probably just break if I even got a glimpse of the tip of that iceberg. Maybe that quantification is the linguistic 3-letter mystery that everybody on Earth seems to understand as being God. But in questioning the reality of it all with the word called God, we begin to understand the raw insanity between trying to contemplate what's outside of our individual experience. Life as a gift to communicate the individual's experience is not unlike having the opportunity to understand why each star has come into existence. The purpose of light in the universe. Is there a purpose? I know that there's people who think that it's not even worth it to worry about thinking, and I'm almost on the cusp of that. But I have to entertain myself. If you get to a point where you feel like you're out of things to do, and that there's no use trying, you're so close to the other side of the journey, because you live through life and you get to truly question why you have the ability to question it in the first place. You go through the motions, as they say. You learn the language of the environment around you. Body language. The mouth sound language. Our communication at this point might simply be based on how we can consume. I don't even really know the purpose of life, to be honest. I just know that it's not to just chase the dragon's tail endlessly until you're in the grave. You know, it's like, is life a simple high score chart at the game over of a Galaga game? I don't think so. It seems to me that the less anybody could take it upon themselves to worry about how they can contribute, the more time we can use to actually contribute. And a lot goes into that. And I think that these workshops and these festivals are a collective of opportunities to diverge away from depression or anxiety or isolation. And I think that diverging away from those things in an active manner. It might not be the meaning of life, but it certainly will provide you some answers to a lot of the questions that we might get. I'm speaking from personal experience. Like, I have to frequently ask other people for help, and then the answer comes. Thank you for listening to me rant. I felt so moved by this co-creation music festival that I had to release a brief splurge of excitement. I cleaned my room specifically to channel my experience into this microphone. I want to thank specifically Create Culture. It still happens every Wednesday at Empire from 9 to 2 in the morning. I'd like to thank all of the friends that came out to the workshops. Sarah, Kat, y'all are wonderful examples of leaders in the flesh, and I truly take y'all's lessons to heart. Michael, Zach, y'all are continuous examples of leaders in your own special voice, and we cannot begin to express how thankful we are for you.